Well, welcome, Sarah Stone, to Campbell Swing Analysis. A little bit about what we do here is we have guest speakers like yourself on to kind of talk about a little bit the ins and outs of coaching, teaching, playing. We're going to do a little bit of a swing analysis with you with one of our current students, Sydney Higgins. And then we're going to kind of jump into how you teach golf schools, bunker lesson, and kind of how you deliver those. And then we're going to kind of jump into a quick Q&A with everyone. And then that should wrap things up here. A little bit about yourself. You were obviously at a bunch of clubs, as we know. I want to have you speak individually about each job opportunity you've had, but you're a Golf Digest Best in State recently, Maryland, number 7 to be exact. Worked alongside world-class instructors such as David Orr, as many of us know here, retired Campbell program instructor. We have people like Mac O'Grady, name very familiar to many of us in the industry, Chris Como, Andrew Rice, Andy Plummer, Stan Utley, some great instructors, and now currently director of instruction at the Chevy Chase Club. So why don't you kind of take us a little bit through your career and how you grew as an instructor, and take us through your path and journey.
Sure. So I grew up in Michigan in a small town and started playing golf in 7th grade. And I was telling Sydney when we started talking about our golf swing, didn't come from a lot of money. And somebody thought I had some talent, so they taught me for free at a club right up the street. I grew up on a farm. It was a good place to be from. When I graduated from Ferris State University, which is where I went to college, I got a job at Westchester Country Club, and that kind of started my golf career. And ultimately, when I started, I wanted to become a head golf professional. So probably about 10 or 12 years into my career, going from Westchester, then I started going back and forth seasonally to Florida because I thought it was important to kind of get as much experience as I possibly could. So I've been doing the seasonal work for about 19 seasons. The first 10 were assistant pro positions: Westchester Country Club, Woodway Country Club, Trump National Golf Club, where I worked as an assistant, and then a teaching pro, Shinnecock Hills as an assistant professional, and then flipped down to Florida and did the Everglades Club for 3 years, the Breakers. And then kind of around my 30s is when I was kind of looking at what it would be like lifestyle wise to be a head golf professional versus a teaching pro. And I knew I wanted to be in a leadership position because I really enjoy helping people along in the golf business. So I looked at director of instruction roles and figured out I wouldn't have to figure out where Mrs. Smith's sweater is every time I walk in the golf shop, and I could actually be the enjoyable part of the experience for the membership as far as just getting better with their golf swings. So that shift happened, I would say about 30, 31. And that's when I started to really start to spend a lot of time with some big name coaches and some very not well-known coaches, because I thought that would be the fastest way to gain experience to become hopefully the best coach I could possibly be. And that kind of led me into my journey. So I started in assistant professional and then fell in love with coaching, which I think you'll hear some stories like that as you start talking to other coaches in the industry.
Awesome stuff, Sarah. So a little bit about yourself. I know you worked at a couple of these clubs I have listed here: Chevy Chase, Shinnecock Creek, Bears Club. When you're teaching these specific memberships, what kind of characteristics did you see in fellow assistant professional roles and interns at these clubs? What were some key characteristics you saw in some interns that were working at these clubs?
Like ones that I thought were going to be successful in the business?
Yeah, like, so when you were working at Shinnecock and the Creek, like when you saw assistant golf professionals at these operations or interns, what good characteristics did good golf professionals have at these places?
Yeah, I would say they asked a lot of questions. They were 15 minutes early to work, which is a big one. They were interested in all areas of the operation. I think the best people that I saw at some of these places were curious people. They were really passionate about what they were doing. So they were interested in not only sharing what they knew about the business, but trying to learn from the other people that we were working alongside. Chris Gabriel is at Sleepy Hollow now. I worked with him at the Creek when he was an intern. I don't know if he went to Campbell, Methodist maybe, but he's got an outstanding career ahead of him now. And I saw that in him when we started. together at the creek. So it's been fun to see some of these people I worked alongside really get into what they wanted to do in the business.
Absolutely. So let's kind of talk a little bit about the golf schools that you run. So kind of how do you set those up and how do you prep for those?
So programming is probably my biggest strength. I think it's the fastest way in the shortest amount of time to maximize money versus time. So if you guys are looking for moving into your jobs, if you get good at programming, your pocket's gonna thank you for it. I usually try to figure out what kind of topic I want to teach, how long do I want to offer it for, and how much I want to charge for it, and then how many other instructors that I'm going to need to run it. I use creative vocabulary. Like I have a marketing degree from Ferris State, and I think that actually is working for me now in my role. But instead of like new to golf or back to basics, or just like I have a program called Terrified to Golf that's mine, that resonated with everybody that wanted to try golf but was scared to do it. So I think that starting these schools, it's like first figure out what's the market you're looking for. And I would tell you that women love clinics, men will do them. Are you trying to offer a specific skill? Are you trying to do an all-encompassing golf school? And then try to figure out your timeline. I think most people have not enough time to do what they're trying to do, and then they rush it all through at the end. So I think if you think it should be an hour, probably an hour and a half would be a good amount of time. But I would say, depending on your personality, I lay out mine every time before I teach them. I have like 3 key points I'm trying to communicate in the clinic, and I try to circle back to those throughout the clinic so I don't get too far away from the information. Basically, I think you're looking, especially at the clubs that I've been at, they're looking for the country club experience. I kind of joke and call it adult camp. It's like they're coming to have a good time. And we're camp counselors that are facilitating that. So you're trying to do whatever you can to make sure that when they leave the clinic, whether or not they got better, they had a really good time with you.
Awesome. So if you want to share your screen now, Sarah, and we'll kind of dive into the analysis of Sydney Swing.
Okay, I'll share it in a second. So I'll start with this. First of all, this was really fun for me to do. It was really exciting. Sydney's got a great action. Sydney, if you want to unmute, if that's okay, because I would like to interact a little bit. She's got a great golf swing, and I'm sure you guys have seen it. She's got a lot of speed. Her path numbers were fairly neutral, almost 0 from the Trackman numbers that I received. We didn't have face numbers on there, and it was more than what I was told as far as how open the club face was. So she and I got together and talked, and we brought up her golf swing, and I'll pull this up for a second because you guys can ask me any questions you want as far as like how I look at golf swings or any coaching questions that I get to, but I'm just going to try to find. So this was the swing that we got down the line. Can everyone see it? Can you see it, Chad?
No, we can't see it yet.
Nope, not yet.
Okay, hold on. It says host disabled attendee screen sharing. Can you fix that for me?
Absolutely.
So while he was working on that, so basically what I wanted to do is kind of run you guys through how I run a lesson. So if I've never met the person before, like I never met Sydney before, although we found out we have lots of friends in common through her business. One of the things that I asked her first is what she wanted to work on, because I got sent a video of her swinging an iron and her action looked good. So I was like, what's this? What is it you actually want to work on? Is it short game, long game, full swing driver, whatever, putting? And she dove down into long irons, right, Sydney? That's kind of one of the things that you
Definitely, yeah.
weakest part of your game. And she shared with me that she understands the importance of short game practice, but in her world, to her point, she's not even gonna make any birdies if she's not hitting any greens. And what'd you say? You can't get up and down on every single hole, right?
Yeah, you can't. There's no way you can get up and down every single hole, even how good your short game is. I still don't think that's possible.
So she did a good job of separating out what part of the game. And that's an important thing, I think, for coaching, that I have had experience going to see some top teachers and watch them teach, and then they're like, get your 6-iron out, and they coach you. Like I used to fight a hook and they coach you right back into a hook without even asking you what you're trying to work on. So when I have a client, what do you want to work on? And if they don't know what they work on, that's when you can start to ask them questions about what's the best club in your bag, what's the worst club in your bag, what club makes you kind of be like, ooh, I don't ever want to touch that one again. And then from there, you guys can start to play detective on maybe what the lesson's going to be. Because if you're not careful, you might just get someone who loves to hit drivers, and you're not going to help them if they came in for an hour of just ripping drivers with you. So then what we did after we talked a little bit about our golf swing. We looked at her video together, right, Sydney? So we went through, let me see if I can share this now. Desktop, here we go. Actually, I can probably do this one. Can you guys see that? Okay, let's see. Can you see her swing here?
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so this is what I was sent. So we went through it piece by piece. So I took her back to, shaft parallel to the ground, and I kind of asked her what she saw, from her standpoint, because she knows her golf swing. I've never seen it before. So I wanted to see kind of her as a client. What does she cue into when she looks at her video? And this is very much how I would run a lesson with any member at the club that I work at currently, because a lot of my clients either go to Golf Tech or have used a ton of video in their own golf swing. So a lot of them are already looking for pieces. So I'm like, okay, Sydney, what do you think from shaft parallel? And what'd you say, girl? I can't remember.
I said that like I'm not really sure what it's supposed to look like, because every time I talk to someone about it, they're like, it's supposed to be open, it's supposed to be closed, it's supposed to be neutral. And so I feel like it's kind of hard because a million people say it differently. And then another thing I noticed is like my leg work and how my left leg tends to get straight super duper fast. And I tend to kind of push my left or my right hip kind of out toward the ball too soon.
Okay. Good things. So that I'm just going to listen to that and take that information. If they were unsure of something, I might reassure them, like, you know what, it's the takeaway. It doesn't always dictate what's going to happen at the impact position. If they're cued into a takeaway look, that might be something to kind of keep at the front of your brain in case you circle back to it, and you can explain why it would maybe not matter in their motion. So then I'll go to lead arm parallel. That's where she's talking about her left leg starting to lengthen a lot, right, Sydney? And there really wasn't anything there, right, that you were like, I don't. And then we go to the top of the backswing, which we talked about a little bit. And what'd you think of that? Anything that stood out to you there?
I mean, not necessarily. I don't think that my backswing is really like a big problem, although I do kind of start to see my right foot come off the ground a lot sooner than it should. And it kind of looks like it's almost off the ground there.
Yeah, good observation. Now, we moved down to lead arm parallel on the downswing. Then we went to, and what I would tell you guys, and I know you, the Camel kids that I have been around are outstanding with the information you guys have. And I think you guys talk in P's, and you guys look at the golf machine, and maybe have done some stuff with some of Mac O'Grady stuff. But I use the shaft parallel, arm parallel positions because it helps you reference screens in the video. If you don't already do that, that's probably a good thing to start to put into your toolkit, because it will help you kind of look at checkpoints through the golf swing that your clients will get familiar with. So if Sydney came back to me and I could go, okay, look at lead arm parallel at the takeaway versus where it was 2 weeks ago, if that's what we're working maybe on arm depth or club face relationship, maybe we could reference back to that and just show it. So if you have an idea of how you're measuring the look on video, I highly recommend looking at the P system, because it helps a lot with helping your clients draw their eyes into things that they're looking for, if that makes sense. Then we came down to impact, and this is her right leg. This is something she brought to my attention, very much up on her tiptoe, a lot of lengthening of the trail leg right before delivery, right, Sydney? And that's something people have pointed out to you.
Yes, definitely.
So we looked at her video. Let me see if I have her face on. Here's her face on. Did something similar. I won't bore you guys with all the details, but we went back and we just kind of looked at the different positions. If you guys have software that shows two cameras, this is really helpful, because then you can see shaft parallel from face on and see it from down the line a lot easier. And so we kind of I was just looking at her movement, kind of trying to see what she looks at. Now, one of the things that she brought to my attention was she thought she was over the top, right, Sydney?
Yes, I thought I was over the top.
Now, and I asked her, did you think you saw it as over the top or you felt it as over the top?
I think I've always been told that I'm very steep. So in my brain, that is kind of signaled as over the top. And I think because of my, continuous ball pattern, I think I'm over the top because of how much it fades. And it's not, I didn't think it was just a face issue.
Right, very good. So I listened to her say those things, and before we go to the Trackman numbers, which are important in this conversation as well, and then we just kind of look at some of her movements. And one of the other things she thought, or that she's been told, which is this phrase is big in social media right now, or has been for a little while, is like handle dragging or dragging the club or release. And so she had been told, or someone had shared with her, that they thought that she drug the handle, right? That you were a handle dragger.
Yeah, that my hands were kind of dragged behind my body. Like my lower body was turning too fast and my hands weren't coming down at the ball fast enough.
Right. And so what we were trying to do is figure out what her definition of handle dragging is versus what I might think handle dragging is. So whatever vocabulary you guys choose to use, like the word release, I mean, if I asked 4 of you what you thought the definition of release is, I think I would probably get 4 different answers. One of the things that I've heard is, if you say release, your brain goes to what your idea of release is. Like handle dragging, I'm thinking of the pulling of the handle through the impact position in relationship to the club face. And Sydney's talking about where it is on her downswing, correct, girl? Like,
yeah,
in relationship to your hips.
Yes.
So, and that wasn't even something I heard you say yesterday. So that's a big cue in of what are they talking about when they use those words versus what are you hearing, and then what do you think they mean? So digging into that helps a lot. If that makes sense to everybody. Toski's famous for throwing a golf club when you say you have to release the club. So that's a good one to think about too with your clients, is as long as you and they both know what the words mean and it creates the result that they want and that you're happy with, whatever word you want to use it. Kind of where I am with that. And then we kind of looked at follow through. So good action. I was a little worried to work with her because I hadn't talked to her yet, and Shay sent me these videos, and I'm like, this looks like a pretty decent golf swing. I don't know what she's going to want to work on. So then we went to Trackman numbers, which I think I have on here. See if I can find it here. Which we found the path. What is this?
No, that's the right one. Is open. The one you just had up was right.
The golf swing.
Oh well, those ones too. There were 2 I sent you.
Okay. Let me see if I can zoom in on that. But it's hard to see. But basically, I talked to her about her golf swing, and I had looked at her Trackman numbers before, and this is one of the reasons I grabbed Shay to give me her phone number, because I wanted to ask her what she's trying to do. Her path number was very neutral. It was almost 0. It was like, I think it was slightly left by 0.7. But the face I was told it was 2 degrees open in relationship to that, because the face number wasn't on this printout. And so I asked Sydney what kind of ball flight that produced, and she correctly answered a fade. So then we were looking at what of the 2 things could we change to help her change her shape. Now, with a neutral path like this, I kind of gave her a choice of, do you want to hit draws? Do you want to hit fades? Or where do you want to see the ball falling out of the sky? Someone like Sydney, even up to probably a 20 plus handicap, I'll give them the option. I'm like, it's your journey. You get to choose. And make sure that you ask them where they want the ball to curve. I mean, you're going to get straight, and I just tell them that's not possible. Like, tour players don't even hit the ball straight. So basically what I will give them the option of is, if I think there's coordination and the numbers are close enough, I will let them choose which way they want the ball to fall out of the sky within reason. So Sydney and I also talked about coaching stuff, and of all the coaches I've been around when they're using Trackman, and this is just what I've seen, it's not a hard, fast rule. The faster you swing the golf club, the closer to the zero you want the parameters to be as far as face and path. So, like somebody like Mrs. Haberkamp from Caddyshack, she's swinging it 27 miles an hour with the driver. Her path and face numbers can be like up to 7 to 8 on either side of zero, as long as it's moving the ball forward with whatever kind of curve you want to work off of. And then when you start getting into some higher speeds and you're not really sure where to be, I stay 3 on either side of zero up to 6, depending on how much curve. And that's what Sydney and I talked about, was like the relationship of how close to zero are you trying to get with your numbers. And if you start looking at the ball flight laws and what you're trying to change, it's fairly easy to figure out what direction to go in, at least in my case in coaching. So make sure that you have some options on the table for what you're trying to choose with her. So Sydney and I then did video, we did Trackman, and then we talked for a while about what she wanted to do. And she picked, you were going to hit, we decided to clean up the right foot, right, Sydney?
Yeah.
So what I thought would happen is if we got some pressure in that right heel, and I didn't explain the drill well enough to her because she had the shaft flipped around in the drill that I asked her to do, but fair enough. You did a good job, girl. I didn't give you enough stuff. But so I had her put a wedge under her lead, or her lead heel. So through impact, she'd feel some more pressure going on there, which I was hoping would let her shift her path more to the right. Because based on the information I was given yesterday, I thought if we shifted her path, we turn it into more of a push draw situation with the face 2 degrees open, get the path 3 to 4 to the right. And by keeping her pressure in her right heel, I thought she might be able to shift that a little bit. Today, when we talked again, the face was actually way more open. It was up to 5 degrees. So that changed what she and I talked about. As a good player with a long iron, 5 degrees open with a pretty neutral path is a very difficult, as Sydney will probably it's a difficult curve to play high level golf with. That's a lot of right curve. So what I had hoped it would happen based on what I had yesterday was she'd pick a ball flight to choose, but based on the face number that I got today, we went in a little different direction. So I had her, I walked her through a little bit of a lead hand grip change. We strengthened her left hand and placed the club a little bit more on the fingers so that the speed of her hips traveling would match up with the release of the club face, which I call release would be like the closing of the face. And Sydney, do you want to talk a little bit about how we did that, or your practice session today?
So basically what I noticed was, I think I set up the Trackman a little bit weird. I don't think I had the target great, but once we did the grip change, I noticed that like my numbers basically flipped. So my face ended up being a lot more closed than it was. I think it turned from like 3 degrees open to 3 degrees closed. And my path got a little bit more closed with the grip change. And I don't know if it's because I was trying, to keep my well, but without the wedge under my heel, I was kind of working on trying to keep that foot down. And I ended up creating more of like a pull fade or like a straight fade. It wasn't as aggressive as it was before, so it's definitely more playable, but I don't know if like push draws in the cards right now, just because of how much I'm fading it, but it's definitely, with the grip changes, a lot more manageable of a fade to play.
So one thing that I'll tell you guys all that I learned from this as a coach is I think that online lessons are very challenging for me. I tend to use 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and then in-person coaching to figure out what we're trying to do. A lot of the stuff that I learned from Mike Adams is matching up grip, relationship, especially trail hand with face, and what that changes. I definitely think that I would have put her through a Mike Adams trail hand test just to see the delivery of the club face, had I known that the face was as open as it was. So I think when you're given information and then it changes, you need to be kind of ready to pivot as a coach and figure out again, if I'd stuck with Sydney staying with the wedge under the foot and we're talking on the phone today while she's at the range and it wasn't changing, definitely needed to dive in a little deeper into what was happening with the Trackman numbers. So I would say, and I think that Sydney, when you did send me the other numbers, that the Trackman was definitely not set up down as well down a target line, because those were pretty high. They were like 10 and 12, some of the path numbers. So one thing I will tell you guys is, and I'm sure you know this, so I'm sorry if I sound redundant, but making sure that your client knows where the Trackman is aimed and you know where the Trackman is aimed is paramount, particularly if you're working with club face path changes. You'll get some pretty funny readouts if your client's aiming obviously all over the place. And then that's something that you learn I didn't realize the importance of it until about 6 years ago. And I was like, oh, if this laser or radar isn't exactly where we want the ball, the target to be, and then the client doesn't know where that is, we're going to have a big disconnect with those numbers. And somebody like Sydney with her speed and talent, it's pretty important to have that matched up, particularly if you're doing online lessons like I am today with her. So that's kind of what I do. I'll do an interview with the client, talk with them a little bit about why they're there. That's my first question. It's, what are you doing here? What brings you in? And if they have no idea and they just think, like a lot of the clients you're going to get, you're just supposed to, I don't know, today's Thursday, I take off lessons on Thursday. So whatever you want to do, I'm good. So then it comes into, okay, if they don't know what they're there for, start to ask them questions and then try to get into their concepts and beliefs. I will say, like, I recently had a client that I've worked with for 6 hours every Friday until I finally asked him what kind of shape he thought he was trying to make with the golf club. And he told me a straight line. So if you want to talk about a concept issue, that's a big one. Like, if he's physically trying to keep the club face in a straight line, he's not going to be able to get very good at golf very fast. And if I don't know that he's conceptually trying to create a straight line, I'm not going to be able to coach him very well, or we're not going to move through successful ball flight stuff if that's the case. So with Sydney, we talked about, the concept of over the top, and we looked at her path numbers and decided that that's not really what's happening. And then we looked at handle dragging, and then we looked at what might be creating a look in the video. That's why I do the video. And then the Trackman numbers, and I try to match those up. And then at the end of the lesson, I'll go back to, okay, here's your video. Here's what's different if they want that. And then here's your Trackman numbers. Did we make your golf swing more functional? And that's my job, is not just to make it. Some of them will choose vanity. They just want to look good while they're swinging. But to try to make your player more functional is a really good way to look at how you're using the Trackman as opposed to how you're using video. But so that's pretty much what Sydney and I did. I'm kind of excited. Hopefully I'll get to, maybe she'll hire me on as her coach and I can keep helping her with her game.
I would love that.
It was fun to talk with her as someone who's trying to develop as a coach, and then also work with her on her game. So that was fun. Thanks, Sydney, for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome stuff, Sarah. If you wouldn't mind kind of jumping into the bunker stuff on how you give bunker instruction to country clubs.
Yeah. So bunkers are something I've always kind of gotten passionate about, because I just don't understand how anybody who plays country club golf could possibly do what we tell them to do, which is hit the sand 2 inches behind, open the club face, aim to the left, and swing down and across your body. And I think one of the other expressions I hear is, it's a full swing. So I've taught for a long time at some very nice clubs and have implemented those concepts, and without any success. So I started looking at what tour players are doing. I tried to spend some time with some really big short game coaches to see what they were working on. Started to learn about bounce, and decided to come up with a kind of a progression for people who can't get out of bunkers. And you guys are, I'm going to confidently say that I think if you employ some of these things, you're going to be super successful with your clientele. The first thing that I try to explain to people that are getting in the bunker is it is the softest surface on the golf course. Most of my clients walk towards a bunker and go, oh my God, I can't remember anything I'm supposed to do in this place. This is totally different than any place on the golf course. It's a different color, it's a different condition, and they don't remember the list. So I explain to them that the putting surface is the firmest, okay? The fairway is the second firmest, the rough is the thickest, and then the bunker is the softest. So if they can just understand that the way that the surface is going to interact with their golf club, I think starts to get them to free them up into thinking like, oh, this isn't as hard or as challenging or as difficult as I thought it was, because it's just a different surface to hit off of. So trying to put them at ease with that explanation of the tools, the putters used to roll it across the firmest, irons off of the fairway, more loft out of rough and more loft out of bunkers, because it's gonna move through there softer. So we start with that, and then I have them walk in with an 8 or a 9 iron, and I teach them a chipping motion. And I'm going to bring up, if it's okay, real quick, my Instagram, because I use this with some clients quite successfully. So what I tried to do was take a skill that they already know, and you can call it whatever you want. I don't care if it's called a chip shot or not, but basically it's a long, short swing out of the sand that would help them get out without trying to do all those things like open the face. I'm trying to find it. That's my wrist one. Let's see. Oh, here it is. If I can show you guys this real quick. So that's basically what I call the chip out. So I give them an 8 or a 9 iron. You guys have all probably taught some short game. You know, the concept would be the same setup as they would on the grass, same club, same swing motion. Kind of, I'm a big fan of long to short out of the bunker. And so I just teach them how to chip out of a surface that's different than the grass. And that one is wildly successful. It's not great if you're in a deep bunker, obviously, but if they need to get out of the bunker, this will get them out of the bunker. I do teach them how to putt out of a bunker too, which is quite, some people think it's silly, but like some people get in there and they just need to get out. So if you look at the surface behind me, you could putt out of the back of that bunker. This is at the Bears Club where I worked for 5 years, which was one of the best places I had a chance to coach out of. And got to spend a lot of time with tour players. So I asked them a lot of questions about how they hit bunker shots too. And a majority of them were like, what are you talking about? 2 inches behind, face open, stance open. They were like, I don't, that doesn't make any sense to us. So that's kind of where I started my journey. So this would be the chip out. So if you guys would be great bunker coaches if you just took them from the grass to the sand and implemented exactly the same technique. And then they're not worried about changing everything. And then if they get bad, I call it, if they suck in the bunker with this, then we go back to the grass, because if they're not good at short game shots like this off the grass, they're not going to get out of the bunker. So I try to explain to them if they're able to do the skill on the grass, they can do it in both places. And a lot of them like that because it's like a buy one, get one free situation. So then the progression would then go to, this Zoom is funny. I wish I was interactive. I'd have more fun asking answer questions. So then I go into the explanation after this of how the wrists are used in the bunker. One of the things that I have overheard as a coach that makes me want to rip my hair out is significant others telling their partner that they are not allowed to use their wrists in the bunker. They absolutely have to. This is your main speed component in a bunker. And if you don't teach your clients how to do this, they won't be highly skilled bunker players, and they wouldn't be able to get out of the lip on the bunker that I'm swinging out of right now. So if you're able to kind of break it down to, okay, you're in there, you can chip so you can get out. Now you know how to chip, let's teach you how to hit it high and soft. How do we do that? I teach every level player from I've never held a golf club to, oh, who's the kid that you sent me that bunker shot? That was some great action.
That would
Who's
be
that?
John Soltis.
Yeah, John, you don't need help with your bunker game. Pick another skill. But to going all the way to John, it would be like explaining the bounce helps your clients understand the tool that they're trying to use. So and bounce is important to understand if you're going to introduce wrist speed and interaction with the ground. Let me find this picture. I had a picture on here where so how I show bounce is I'll like put the wedge down. I don't have one, with the bounce and make marks in the sand. And then I put the leading edge down and make marks in the sand. So your clients can start to differentiate between if the leading edge hits the sand versus if the bounce hits the sand, how does it move through the surface? Okay. And then help them understand why would they choose a leading edge setup versus a bounce setup would have to do with the conditions of the, well, those are videos, that's why. It would have to do with the conditions of the surface that they're walking into. So instead of making bunkers be like this mysterious situation that happens on the golf course that you hope you never get into, if you can give your clients logical ways that line up with skills that they already know how to do, you'll have a lot of success. I'm coming up on it here. Oh, here it is. You'll have a lot of success in the understanding of how the tool interacts with the ground. So if you look like obviously maybe the top is leading edge in a firm bunker and the bottom is the bounce. So I think if you're teaching bunkers and you're introducing wrist action, that would start to explain why the club is designed with some bounce. How does it work in the surface? And then what surface is appropriate to use it in? Your clients will get better at bunkers. So I don't teach it as a full swing. I teach it as a short, fast swing. I really want them to, like John's action is really good, trying to get the club to work up and down as quick as they can around them. So in some of my videos on here, I talk about getting it to feel like it's going in their ear or a little bit as quick as they can up and then unload it and then flip it back up into their other ear. And if you look at really high level bunker players, they almost back out of the shaft coming towards them. And so I try to relate it back to a player that they might know or tell them to go watch bunker shots whenever the PGA Tour is on, is get off the couch and go stand in front of the TV and watch them hit a bunker shot and see if what I'm telling them to do is similar to what they are actually doing. But I just don't think this, I don't know, I might create an issue with this with my other colleagues in coaching, but opening the face, taking a big swing, hitting 2 inches behind it. My clients barely swinging over 80 miles an hour with a driver. I just don't think they can get out of a bunker with that kind of information. And a lot of the stuff that we teach has been handed down for generations, and some of it just doesn't make sense when you think about what you're trying to do. So that's kind of my bunker progression. I've had a lot of success with it. And I think that, I believe in it. So this is one thing that I would say, I think you guys would definitely get better at if you could figure out how to explain. It's a skill they already know that they can do in a softer surface. They get good at that. They can get out, then they can move on to, okay, now I want to hit it like John, nice and high and soft. Okay, well, you need to learn how to use your speed joint, which is your wrist. You need to learn how to load it and unload it. And then you have to understand what part of the club is going to interact with that surface. And is the surface that you're trying to interact with going to either receive the bounce or not? And then that's kind of how I go through my bunker progression.
Awesome stuff, Sarah. I think we should take the last 10 minutes to open it up to the other students for a Q&A if you're game. Yeah,
I'm good. Dior said I'm good with late if we get going.
Does anyone have any questions for Sarah to start us off?
I can start with one. Go ahead.
Oh, so for like people who probably here, can you turn your, yeah, that's it. Okay. For people who have like faster swing speeds and stuff, like you said, you work with people that have like driver swings normally like 80 miles an hour. But for people with faster swing speeds, like people in like PGM or like professional golfers, would you say for like firm or bunker, or for firm bunkers to close the face or have it not as open, then for soft bunkers have it open?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would depend on who's in front of me, but I think you have to get a little bit of the soul involved in firm bunkers. I mean, depending on the conditions. But I mean, if your club head speed's fast and you're playing a high level, I mean, you can use bounce out of those. I mean, that would be a different situation with how much are you opening it on the backswing, and then how much speed you're coming through on the follow through side, for sure. I mean, I would definitely have a different conversation with someone who's a high level player out of there.
Awesome. Sarah, I have a question for you. So what kind of criteria do you think it takes to be a top 100 instructor, personally speaking?
I would say that you need to be passionate about what you're doing. I don't think there's anyone in the top 100 that's doing it to make a lot of money. I think they're doing it because they love it. I think you need to be well networked. So that would mean following the passion thing. That would be like going to any education things that you can find to expand your toolbox. I would say networking relationships. So getting out of your comfort zone and introducing yourself to some of the coaches that have been on that top 100 for a while. And you don't need to have like super intricate questions to talk to them. It can just be a matter of like, hey, I go to Campbell. I see your stuff on Instagram. I'm really interested. Is there an opportunity for me to learn from you? I think the top 100 coaches are all different types of coaches. You could go high level, you could go country club, you could go academy, public driving range. I think it's a matter of really building some relationships with the people who are also passionate coaches. And as you climb into your career, depending on what direction you go into, the further you get into it and the more into it you are, you start to find a group of really special people that are into it into the same level or more as you are. So I think that's kind of how I would look at it. But definitely, if any of you guys are interested in becoming top coaches, I would say, first of all, you need to love it, because it's not a very sexy job. You got to build networks and through relationships, and really be interested in learning from everybody.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions for Sarah?
No?
Hey, Sarah, I actually have a question. So my question is regarding like attack angle. So what would you say, or what are you looking for with we'll go high swing speed. What would you look for with like attack angle, launch angle, and spin rates to like optimize?
That's a good question. I don't see a lot of that from the audience I'm in front of. I mean, I think what you're trying to do is optimize what the player wants to do with the golf ball. So if you start looking at, someone with a more under right, like trail hand grip is going to be less down than someone that grips it like Brooks Koepka. So I don't have a preference for over across the board. I have preferences per player, if that makes sense. Another coach said that really well, and I thought that was great. It's there's not fundamentals, but there can be preferences, and then each player can have their own set of preferences. So I would never say I have a formula that I use to try to fit everybody into. I think it would matter on club face, angle, delivery. So someone who's delivering it from a more of like a Brooks Koepka situation, I think you would see more down and higher spin rate than someone like Dustin Johnson, who's delivering it from more of a side under, shallower. That would be less deep. Like Sydney, you're fairly down. I'm a more of a right path drawer of the golf ball, so I'm going to be less down. My spin numbers would be lower. So I mean, that's kind of how I would match. I hope that helps. That's how I would match up what's in front of me.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for answering that.
Sure. I think what I would tell you guys too with Trackman Numbers is it's about 6 or 7, maybe 8 years ago. I don't think it was that long ago, actually. It could have been 5. I don't do math. I'm like, I can't. This Trackman, there's no way. But if there's numbers that you're not familiar with and you have clients that you see on a daily basis, it's fun to bring those up and just start to see what changes with the person in front of you, and be careful about coaching them into something. This is where preferences and fundamentals gets all mixed up. It's you need to make sure that you're not coaching a preference that you prefer, but that you're coaching the client into something that's functional for them. And I think that that's an important thing for you guys to start looking at. Is Shay asked me to talk a little bit about the coaches that I worked for, but that's Mike Adams. If you guys can get in front of him, I would definitely learn from him, because he's about matchups. You start to learn that there are different ways that people can move. Tony Ruggiero, Chris Como, Dana Delquist, you talk to those guys, their coaching is all shifted around a lot year to year, because they're starting to realize that some of the things they thought were important, like matching up numbers or having the right elbow tucked in on like P4, or sorry, P5 or P6, doesn't matter as much if the player can't move that way or produce a ball flight they want to play with. So I think that those things they're all good. I call it tools. They're all tools in your toolbox. You just need to make sure that you have a big, deep toolbox, which would be going back to the top 100 client people. Why are they there? They know how to work with anybody that walks in front of them, with all the information that they've gathered through their journey. And that's what I'm trying to do. Is if I have Shay in front of me or I have Sydney in front of me, it's like, what can I connect with them on at the fastest level possible to get them moving functionally as quickly as possible. And just being in one camp doesn't let you do that. And so I would be careful with getting all in on any certain type of swing instruction system method. But that's one thing I would say I've been extremely lucky, is because of my journey, I have a lot of information from a lot of amazing coaches that have shared with me. So I can move throughout 40-mile-an-hour driver to 110-mile-an-hour driver, and at least be able to help them.
Awesome stuff, Sarah. Thank you so much for spending the time with us as a special guest. I know everyone for sure learned something new. Go follow her at Stone Golf Sense on Instagram, and follow us at Campbell Swing Analysis on Instagram. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Oh, Shay, thanks. And if any of you guys ever want to reach out on anything, please. I love this stuff. So books, knowledge, information, who to see, any of that stuff, I'm happy to share. It's because that people help me, and I am where I am because of that. So happy to share that with you guys. Thank you so much for letting me share with you guys. This was like a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Sarah.
job. Good job, Sydney. See you guys later.